All right, so for city staff, this is a recorded hearing. It is not being broadcasted on Facebook. So Vice Chairman Brown, I do show you present. I show Commissioner Biggerstaff, Commissioner Waddell, Commissioner Furman, and Commissioner Young. And just for the record, I have spoken with Commissioner Furman, which is Commissioner Lamont. So for our records on the hearing, we'll be addressing her as Commissioner Furman.
Okay.
And I believe our legal, let's see, the court reporter, is that, let's see, it looks like he's connecting my voice. Let me let him attack here. Lucas Bowens.
I think I saw a message from him. Says he's president. He just put it in the group chat.
Okay, it looks like, are you able to connect audio?
It says here, sorry, his audio is not working.
All right, yeah, we're gonna need to hold on for a minute because he's the court reporter. He has to swear people in. So his audio is gonna have to work.
Okay, he's the court reporter.
Yes, if we can be at ease for just a moment, let me contact Judy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, is that you, Lucas?
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I had an issue with the audio and I apologize. Didn't mean to get you to contact Judy or anything.
Oh, that's okay. All right, so you're good to go with recording?
Yes, I apologize to everybody very much.
Okay, all right, Vice Chairman Brown, you're good to go.
Okay, welcome to the May hearing of the Minimum Housing Commission. My name is Quentin Brown. I'm a commissioner from District 1. Let's do a quick roll call. Is there any other commissioners that would like to introduce themselves? Anyone? That a no? Okay.
That's out of order.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Normally, we get started with the approval of minutes. That's the first thing on the item agenda. We have the approval of minutes from 4/18/21. There's a motion. I make a motion that we approve the minutes. Is there any issues or questions from the minutes before, or anything that any commissioners have or city staff to add to the minutes or take away from?
I'll second the motion.
All right, the motion has been properly moved and seconded. I guess we'd like to take a vote by roll call. Attorney Baker?
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Biggerstaff,
I'm not voting on this since I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay.
Commissioner Waddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Young.
Yes.
All right.
Very good.
Looks like it's been approved with one abstaining. We're going to go ahead on and go to the second order item, which is a request for staff to any changes to the agenda. Staff, will there be any changes to today's agenda?
Yes, sir. On item number 6, it actually has become in order to repair, not in order to demolish. On item number 8, we are going to pull that for compliance. And number 10, the property owner on the agenda reads is not the current property owner, but the current property owner was served and will be
Okay.
today.
Okay. All right.
And for additional staff changes, I believe city attorney had something to add.
All right.
I do, I just, on my notes, if I could go back to Ms. Holt for a second, I had withdrawing number 11 on the agenda as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's later, sir. But
Okay,
yes.
all right. Okay, so we'll make sure. Yes, if I could, would like to address the commission about on the issue of continuing cases. Troy Powell and I had a conversation with Stan Wilson and wanted to present just our thoughts on whether or not the commission should continue cases, especially new cases that are presented to the commission, and why we're recommending that you consider hearing the case and entering the order if there's sufficient evidence rather than continuing the cases. And ready to discuss that whenever you are, but just wanted to add that general issue to the agenda.
Where do we put that on the agenda, Vice Chairman Brown?
I don't see it over here in the regular meeting notes. We can put it at the end, or we can also put it at the beginning. This is democracy, so is there any objections to it going in the front by any commissioners, or would you rather it be at the end?
And for what it's worth, I would like to discuss it before we get to the cases today, because it may have some applicability to the cases you hear today. So I would offer that we discuss it before we get to the cases. And I will be brief. I know any lawyer saying they'll be brief. I'll be brief.
This is
Quentin,
Commissioner
Tony, thank
Biggerstaff. I would just like to
Mhm.
request that any lengthy discussion that's not directly related to a case be held later so that folks can don't have to wait so long for their cases to be heard. I understand if you need to, Tony, if you need to go ahead and say something right away. And also I may have to leave if I may be getting a call, but I'll have to wait.
So Vice Chairman Brown, if you want to put it at the beginning of the meeting, would you like to put it as 4A and limit it to a 5 or 10 minute discussion? And then if it goes beyond that, move it to the end, and I can have staff time that for you.
Yeah, I think that'd be applicable. Let's go ahead and do that. I guess I better make a motion to amend the regular minutes, the regular meeting, to allow staff to offer a suggestion about continuing cases, so on and so forth. Is there anyone who wants to second it?
Quentin, thank you for getting the meeting started. I just wanted to make audio video working.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And since the staff prepares the agenda, I don't know that we need a formal vote on adding it to the agenda. I think we just add it.
Okay, well, keeping in respect to Commissioner Biggerstaff's request, we're gonna go ahead on and limit this short discussion to 5 minutes. Go ahead on, Troy, and time it. And I guess, Tony, y'all can present what you need to have presented.
Is my audio being heard here?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear
sir.
you, Peter.
Okay. Thank you, Quentin, for
And
the
thanks, Quentin, I appreciate it, and Troy.
All right, so commissioners, we'll add to the agenda as 4A for the continuous discussion. We'll limit it to 5 minutes. If additional time is necessary, it'll move to item number 15 for the remainder of that discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. And I promise I will be brief. In my short, that y'all have occasionally continued cases when property owners have asked for more time. And I would suggest.
Hold on just a second. We're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Vice Chairman Brown, y'all are getting ready to adopt the agenda.
I think that Council Baker said that we didn't need to have a formal vote, so I got 140 at this exact moment. If you want to go ahead and we can go ahead and do that.
We have to swear in. The next item on the agenda is number 3. We have to swear in staff, but you do have to adopt the actual adoption of the agenda.
I'm
It
sorry.
does have to be by vote.
You don't have to approve the items in general by one on the changes, but you should formally adopt the agenda so that we move through in that order.
Well, then,
getting started.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take over.
okay. Basically, Peter, what they're about to do is talk about. I guess the council and Troy have an issue. They want to talk about continuing cases. What I did was I took a motion. It just needs to be properly seconded. Carolyn stated that she didn't want it to be a little bit more than 5 minutes, which we all agreed upon, and that's where we are right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Quentin.
You're welcome. So we're gonna get it. I guess you can take on from there, and we can just. It's already been properly motioned. It just needs to be seconded.
And do we have a second for that motion?
I
Second.
second the motion.
Second it.
With a motion and a second, we'll do a roll call vote.
Chairperson Isikoff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Biggerstaff,
yes,
Commissioner Waddell,
yes,
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we will add that to the docket before we go to our continued cases. I understand we have not yet approved our minute 8th meeting. Is that correct?
We're on item number 3.
All right, I appreciate that. We'll now swear in all city staff that are planning on testifying.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Do you all swear that all you say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
yes.
All right. Thank you. You all may proceed.
Thank you. And normally we'd swear in now all of the public that's planning on testifying, but since we're in a virtual meeting, what we're going to do is swear in people case by case. So we'll be moving forward with, first of all, the administrative item just voted on, and then moving into our cases for today. I'd ask everyone if you can turn off anything that is going to ring, chirp, anything like that. Especially with this being a virtual meeting, we want to make sure we can hear everyone clearly. I'd also ask that anyone who's speaking identify themselves before they speak, and that we do our best not to speak over each other or not to speak at the same time. These are recorded meetings, and we just want to make sure we can get a very clear recording of what everyone says. So we want to be extra sensitive to that with these being virtual meetings. That being said, I understand we have an administrative item that our city council wants to bring up. So we'll turn the floor over for that with time limits proposed and voted on.
All right, I show 143, getting ready to go to 144, so I'll start it at 144.
Very good. And thank y'all. And for the full commission, I sent an email to Vice Chair Brown and to Chairperson Isikoff with these thoughts. My brief experience being your attorneys, I've noticed that y'all have continued cases that have come before you as new cases. And I would like for you to consider not to continue those cases for several reasons. One, when a new case comes to you, the owner has already had at least 90 days from the city to either repair or demolish these cases. Once you approve an ordinance, the owner has an additional 90 days. So we're now at 6 months to repair or demolish before the city's going to get involved in any way. For the city to get involved to repair the case, it has to be done under receivership with consent. And if the city were to step in to demolish a home, it goes on a priority list, which can take up to a year. But staff, after you enter an ordinance, staff still has additional flexibility of offering extensions of up to 6 months before the city would step in to demolish a case. A second point I'd like you to consider is when you continue a case, staff must go out and do re-inspections every 30 days. Not only is that a resource constraint on staff, it is a cost to the property owner. Whereas if you enter an ordinance, the owner has 90 days and staff does not go back out to re-inspect for at least 90 days. If you were to continue a case for 6 months, as you've done in the past, if the home is not repaired in that 6 month period, that's potentially an additional $2,000 of re-inspection fees to that property owner for the time of that continuance. Also, if you enter an ordinance at the time of the hearing, we've had a number of cases where buyers have come in and said, I had no notice of the violations that were pending. If you enter the ordinance, that ordinance becomes a part of the public record and will show up on a title search so that if the property is sold, then the buyer has notice. Whereas if you continue the case, for example, 6 months and the property is sold, then we're relying upon the seller to tell the buyer that there's a pending case, pending violations and penalties. And we know by experience that the buyer doesn't always find that out. So entering that ordinance now creates that public record and protects the public in general. And finally, if we're able to present the case today and have a determination today, assuming that the order is upheld and it becomes an ordinance, if that case is continued, then realistically, staff is going to have to represent that case somewhere down the road. And again, it's just a matter of efficiency that we'd rather present the evidence one time today and have it heard and answer the simple question, is there sufficient evidence to uphold this order and enter the ordinance? And again, the property owner is going to have ample time to finish the property without the need for a continuance before the city ever even thinks about getting involved in the property. So with that said, I'd ask the commission to keep that in mind. Before, when anyone asks for a continuance, I would urge the commission not to continue the case, but to hear the case today. And if staff is not ready to present a case today, staff should have pulled the case off to begin with. But it should be unlikely that the city is asking for a continuance. So with that said, I'd suggest the commission to keep that in mind going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I appreciate that. I don't believe that requires a formal vote or anything. I take that as more administrative advice.
And one of the things that goes with this, and I show a minute, 20 seconds, so I'll try to be brief with it. The original evidentiary packet that the inspector prepares is going to have all the evidence in which they have identified code violations, their initial video that documents and provides the evidence of those code violations, and what's in the system. So in any subsequent hearing that would follow, we're going to cease the inspector pulling administrative warrants and re-inspecting the structures over and over and over. The problem that's causing is if there's 12 violations in the beginning of a case and a property owner corrects 6 of those violations, if you decide to uphold that order at a later date and your case is appealed to Superior Court, you will have actually upheld violations that in fact are corrected, which makes the order to repair improper. So the evidentiary packet that the inspector would submit initially would be the same packet, same video that we would continue to submit at any subsequent hearings, because that would be the burden of proof that the inspector is required to present, and we cannot change it for a progress report. We have to stick with the same evidence. And I showed 3 seconds.
Thank you,
Chairman Isaacoff, this seems
Yes, sir.
like pretty-
Mr. Young?
yeah, thank you. This seems to be I'm trying to follow the, knowing that the clock is running, I'm trying to follow the complexities that are being presented to us. And I can't figure it out yet. So I'm hoping we can continue this conversation at the end of this session, please.
And is that a request to make it a discussion item after we hear all our cases?
Understanding that we're now over the 5-minute mark, I'm going to make that into a motion that we have a continued discussion based upon this presentation at the end of this session, item whatever that is, 15.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, we already have that on the agenda. So on your adoption of the agenda, we did say that item 15 would become further discussion if you needed it beyond the 5 minutes.
All right, I appreciate that. So that's noted as the new docket item 15. And I just want to check, and I apologize if I missed this. City staff, do we have any changes to the agenda for today?
We do, we covered them.
They've been
yeah.
adopted.
If you don't mind just telling me very quickly.
So the 2, in reference to the item numbers, number 6 has turned into an order to repair, and number 8 we pulled because it's already in compliance.
Thank you. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll get started hearing our cases for today. The first we have up is 3504 Yanceyville Street. Owners Daniel Cullinan and Marianne Cullinan.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I missed an administrative matter just to make the commission aware.
Oh, sure.
And if it comes up for today, we would be returning to the chambers for our June session. So for the June meeting of the Housing Commission, the commission and staff will be returning to the chambers, and the public would remain remote at this time.
Wonderful. Well, that is very great news.
And if I may add to that for staff as well as for any public who are here, once we go back to chambers, then we'll no longer need to read the consent paragraph for the remote hearings. Even if public is remote, the law applies to the commission being in person.
Understood. We'll be back to normal, which is
All right. Yeah, is there people here for Yanceyville Street?
Yes, I'm here.
I'll go ahead and read it in.
Is that
and then we
Mr. Cullinan?
yes, that's him. So for number 5, 3504 Yanceyville Street, the date of initial inspection was September 7th, 2018. The hearing was October 23rd, 2018. The order to repair was issued November 6, 2018 and expired December 6, 2018. The property did have to be secured. There are children in the area. There is a school nearby. There is not a history of police complaints. The city is seeking an order to repair as the repair costs are 23% of the value. And Mr. Cullen is here.
And we'll get Mr. Cullen sworn in.
Hi there, Mr. Cullinan.
Hello.
I just need to swear you in real quick. Do you swear that everything you say today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Cullinan. How are you?
Good
doing?
afternoon. I'm doing well. I hope you guys are.
Hey, before we continue on, was there not something that city was supposed to read about his rights on a video
Yeah.
meeting?
Doing that now. Mr. Cullinan, before we proceed, we require your consent to participate in this meeting remotely. North Carolina law requires your consent for this hearing since the commission is sitting remotely. If you choose to wait until the commission meets in person, your case will again be postponed until that time. During that delay, the commission is not going to make any findings regarding your property or issue any orders against you. Once the commission is able to meet in person, the commission may proceed with your case, even if you are not able to appear in person or if you are only allowed to appear remotely. If your case is delayed until the commission meets in person, the penalties and reinspection fees for monthly safety inspections will continue to be assessed. Do you now consent to this virtual hearing?
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I see that we were last here on January 14th. I understand you had recently purchased the property and were working out your plans on what you intended to do with this. I understand you were unaware of the level of repairs that were needed at this property when you bought it.
That's correct. I was also, as Mr. Baker pointed out, was one of those unfortunate victims of the previous owner not disclosing anything about this commission or the fines or where we were at that time. So yeah, it's been kind of a difficult road, and with coronavirus hitting, the whole construction people that were working it for me, gone. So it's been a one-man show here. But as you can see by the video, we are almost to completion. The interior is almost being completed. The countertops are all in. Just waiting for the electrical guy to finish up. The HVAC guy will be right behind him. The interior is about ready to be painted. I just need 60 days, 90 days to complete it. That's probably asking a little. We'll probably be done before that, but I just wanted that one thing, since it's just myself and one other guy trying to finish it out right now. So it's been kind of slow, unfortunately, and it is what it is. But we're making huge progress and should be done with everything within the next 60 to 90 days, without question.
Are you aware
Wonderful.
that your
And
civil
I'll ask you-
penalty is sorry, Peter. Are you aware of your civil penalty accrual?
I just got a letter from the attorney's office, and the thing about that, I was talking to Carla Patterson or Harrison about that exactly. I'm aware of it. That what you see there has been repaired. That's all fixed right there. The siding part of it's gone. Yes, I'm aware, but I just got a letter from the city attorney, basically threatening legal action. So I have all my money tied up into this house. I have all my life savings into this house. I'm almost done with it. I just need a little bit more time to get it done and sold. And I need to, I'm really kind of at a loss here for words because of I feel kind of victimized actually about it because I keep getting these bills. I keep getting in this letter from the city attorney saying they're going to threatening legal action. I'm doing the best I possibly can to get this house done within the next 30 to 60 days. It's just what I'm trying to do. And we're working feverishly on it. And I have been. So, I mean, it's very, very close to being done. As you can see, all the lights are in. It just needs to be painted. We're finishing up with some molding and we're done. I just need a little bit more time and some consideration with the coronavirus or how it's impacted my workforce and how it's just slowed the project down completely.
So I want to clarify, I don't believe that there would be an enforcement action at this point in the process. I know the letters say that. I don't believe city attorney's office is going to be filing a lawsuit anytime soon, especially.
That would be great because my hair is falling out as it is.
You and me both, sir. So I don't believe I'll let city attorney chime in on this, that there's going to be any enforcement action. I understand that's at this point. I do want to emphasize you're doing a lot of work here and you're incurring costs. Save all of your receipts.
Right. Yes. Carla told me that. I have every penny that we spent on this house verifiable, all the receipts, workers, the whole 9 yards. I got it all in the file.
So if your receipts total more than the civil penalties can be reduced to $500 based on that.
Right now, I'm about at $60,000. So yeah, I think I got.
You're well in excess, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
And I just ask to city staff, I know we mentioned upcoming HVAC and electrical work. Have permits been pulled for that?
Yes.
Yes, he's got all of his permits, and as you can tell, the only thing he's got to do is put his casing up, his trim up. The house doesn't have to be painted for us, and but once he gets everything done, he's to the final stages.
Commissioners, I'll open it for discussion.
So it looks like Mr. Cullinan has done a terrific job, and he's got a lot riding on this. And I think all of us here a level of frustration that's associated with the process. And I think where we're going to go with this is we're definitely going to be giving Mr. Cullinan an extension and so on, so he can get this work done. And the house looks really great. But if I'm not amiss, if Mr. Cullinan has any concerns about the process and stuff, unfortunately, that's not within our realm, if I'm right.
Yeah, I understand that, sir.
Chairman Isaacoff, but we do have elected officials, et cetera, to whom he can appeal.
And Mr. Young, are you referencing civil penalties?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Young, are you referencing the civil penalties?
I'm referencing the general tone of Mr. Cullinan and just saying that this process seems to be frustrating to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to chime in here for a second, sir, Mr. Young. I believe you guys have treated me very fairly. I really have no qualms with the commission. You've given me enough time to get it done. However, certain things have just kind of backed up as far as with the virus and all that stuff, as you can imagine. But we're working diligently to complete it, and we will be done very shortly.
Yeah, understood. And I commend you for the work you're doing. It looks really good, and I think it's confirmed by the inspectors and stuff. So, as far as I'm concerned, as a commissioner, it seems like you're doing great stuff, and to the extent that that your penalties can be alleviated, that's a process you can go through. But in terms of the overall whatever's, that's I think I'm speaking correctly that the particular processes unfortunately are out of our hands.
Right.
Understood.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this case 60 days. Hopefully he'll have it done in 60 days on the contingency that it could be completed in that time.
Quentin, what do you think
Second.
about 90 days?
I'm okay with 90 days. We continue
I'm-
with 90 days. I'm fine with that too.
I'll second 90 days.
I'm just throwing that out there because he said 60 to 90, and you know how things can come up with contractors, and I don't want to have another hearing for this if it's within a couple weeks of being done. But
Okay.
I'm fine with either, honestly.
I'll amend it to 90 days, seeing as how it's already been, since my motion has been seconded, I guess we go to the question if you like. Whenever you're ready.
All
Peter.
right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
And before the roll call, Chairperson Eiskov is correct. My office files the lawsuit. There's not going to be a lawsuit filed anytime soon to collect the penalties. You'll have an opportunity to go through the penalty reduction process. So those letters are sent, but nothing is pending at this point.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
For the roll call, Chairperson Isaacoff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown.
Yep.
Commissioner Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So that passes unanimously. Sir, you have 90 days. And if you finish beforehand, get in touch with your inspector, have them come out and close the case out. Then you don't have to come back here.
Yes, sir. Very good. Understood. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your work.
Yes, sir. Enjoy your day.
What's next?
You too.
Who's up next?
1606 Gracewood Drive.
1616 Gracewood Drive.
And I'll clarify, this is in order to repair, not in order to demolish.
Got you.
So for 1606 Gracewood Drive, the date of initial inspection was October 15th, 2017. The hearing was February 18th, 2020. The order to demolish at the time was issued February 18th, 2020 and expired March 21st, 2020. The property did have to be secured. There are children in the area. There is not a school nearby. There is not a history of police complaints. The cost to repair is 41% of the value, which moves it to an order to repair.
Do we have anyone from Royal Crest Builders here today?
Yes, I'm here. Adam Kinski. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, we can go ahead and get
What's going on
Mr.
with this property?
Can we go and swear Mr. Kinsey in?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Kinsey, do you
Yes.
swear that everything you say today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, you may proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
And-
having me.
Mr. Kinsey, before you start, sorry, this is unique for North Carolina law, but North Carolina law requires your consent to participate in this hearing since the commission is appearing remotely. If you choose to wait until the commission meets in person, the case will be postponed until that time. During that delay, the commission won't make any findings regarding your property or issue any orders against you. Once the commission is able to meet in person, the commission may proceed with your case, whether you can appear in person or not at that time. If your case is delayed until the commission meets in person, the civil penalties and reinspection fees for monthly safety inspections will continue to be assessed. With that said, do you consent to participate in a remote hearing?
I do, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I see you were last here in front of us in February. And it looks like was this a property you purchased recently?
We purchased it. Forgive me, I'm on the road right now. I had a doctor's appointment all morning. I don't have the file in front of me, but I believe we purchased it right around the first of the year. And we were not aware of any violations or that this home was on your guys' radar until you notified us by letter shortly after we bought it. And that's what prompted our participation in the February meeting.
And I do want to make sure, just as a point of order, you said you're on the road. I see you're in your car. Are you pulled over? I just want to make sure we're not being unsafe.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm actually the passenger, but we are pulled over to also minimize road noise. So I apologize if there's any background noise.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure you weren't driving while participating in the meeting. So you purchased it around the first of this year. We were here in February. What have you been doing since February?
We've made great progress out there. I would say we're about 2/3 of the way done. As you probably remember from February, the house was, the previous owner had gutted it and then just left it. And so this thing really needed to be worked on from top to bottom. And so we've tackled it in the proper order, which included, getting all the proper permits pulled. We had to repair framing, reframe a lot of the home before all the trades could come in and do the rough in for electrical and the rough in for plumbing and the rough in for HVAC. Separately on the exterior, the siding was missing, windows were missing. So since then we've had all the windows put in, we've had new siding put on, full exterior paint job. Inside we've had all the framing repaired. We actually had to have a structural engineer come out and offer a report to satisfy the requirements of our permit, which took a little bit of extra time that we didn't anticipate. But we've since got all the framing done. I believe our sheetrock work just started yesterday, day before yesterday or yesterday. It was recent. So I don't think your video will show it, but the home's going to have the sheetrock complete probably by the end of this week, at which time we can then get all the interior items finished, all the trim work finished, and so on. I anticipate the home being fully complete probably between 30 and 60 days. The only real variable we have now that I know of is that we just ordered our hardwood flooring 3 to 4 weeks to get the materials in, simply because of COVID and supplies, and it takes a little longer to get everything these days. So I really, if the hardwood lines up correctly, I think everything will be done most likely in 30, but to err on the side of caution with construction and, not being in control of all the timetables, 60 days might be more of a safe estimate.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners?
Looks like they got everything going on like they need to be having on. It's got a really good timetable. This is in District 4. Is anyone who represents District 4? Is that you, Peter? You represent District 4? You say you do?
I do, yeah. I'm from District 4.
Okay. So it's like this is in District 4. I'd like to see District 4 take the lead on what you think we should do.
I think it looks like work's being done. I see progress here, and I understand he's a new purchaser who, we've seen this a lot, where he buys the property and he doesn't know about these proceedings. And it sounds like he's taking them seriously and he's trying to do the best he can to remedy the violations that were found. I'd be in favor of 60 days with the idea of if he finishes, he doesn't have to come back here.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Brown. Any further discussion?
I just want to say I'm very glad to see this house is in my parents' neighborhood. So I'm glad to see that it's going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, with a motion in a second, we'll call the question on that one.
Thank you. Chair Isikoff,
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
Commissioner Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that motion passes unanimously. The continuance date is July 8th of this year. So, sir, if you finish July 8th, just let your inspector know. If they close it out and say there's no more violation, you have to come back here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work, sir. Next up, we have 1205 Avalon Road.
Yes, for 1205 Avalon Road, the date of initial inspection was September 30th, 2019. The hearing was September 8th, 2020. The order to demolish was issued on September 8th, 2020, and expired on October 4th, 2020. The property did not have to be secured. There are children in the area. There is a school nearby. There is not a history of police complaints. We were seeking an order to demolish as the repair costs are I'm sorry, 70% of the value.
Thank you.
And Juan Botello Lopez is on the call, I believe.
This is in District 1, if I'm
Mr.
not
Lopez.
mistaken.
That is correct, sir.
Yes, that's me, Juan Botello.
And Mr. Lopez, do you need a translator?
No, I'm good.
Okay, wonderful. I know we have some questions for you about the virtual meeting, and then we'll get you sworn in.
Okay.
Mr. Patello, did you hear the consent request that I read to the other folks on this hearing? Do I need to read it again to you?
No, I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
Do you consent to this meeting being held virtually?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Hi there, Mr. Botello Lopez. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
I just need to
Thank
get you
you.
sworn in really quick. Do you swear that everything you say today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're good. You may proceed.
So, Mr. Lopez, you were last before us in February of this year, and I understand you were doing work to get this fixed, and you had said in about 2 months was what you needed to get everything taken care of, which was the basis for our continuance. Where are you at right now on repairs?
Well, I'm getting close. I'm still working. As you know, materials prices going up, so I'm kind of struggling with that, but I am doing my best. I have the inspector. The other day came over to the house. He took a video, and I think I'm trying to do my best. And I will ask for another 90 days, just to be on the safe side, and that's it. I already pulled a permit for the electrical work.
Mm-hmm.
And I am trying to work with you guys.
How's the electrical going?
The electrical is fine. All I did is replace some boxes, metal boxes for plastic boxes, and that's it. That's it.
And are you a licensed electrician, sir?
No, but I've been doing electrical for a long time. But I already talked to my boss, and he helped me with the permit.
Okay.
So yes.
I just want to make sure, because my understanding is if you're doing anything more than just installing electrical appliances like lights, stuff like that, if you're doing rewiring, you need a permit. So I just want to make sure you're handling the permit properly.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I didn't do any rewiring because I understand all them procedures, and all I did is replace some metal boxes for plastic boxes. That's all I did, but I already called get a permit for that.
And otherwise, this property looks great. It looks like, for the most part, all it needs is a coat of paint on the walls.
Yes, basically, yes. I got the countertops on the other day, and I am trying to do my best, basically.
Commissioners, how do you feel about this case?
Could we get verification on all the permits pulled and things like that?
He has an electrical permit. The amount of work he was doing did not require a building permit, but he does have an electrical permit.
Looks good to me. Mr. Botello, are you asking for 60 days or you think 90 days?
I will say 90 days. I can say 60 days, but I prefer to do 60 days. In case I finish early, I just call the inspector and do what we got to do.
Yeah, definitely understood. I make a motion that that he be given 90 days.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Thank you, Chair Isaacoff.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown. I'm gonna roll on. Commissioner Biggerstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell.
Yes.
Commissioner Furman.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
I don't see Vice Chair Brown having popped back up, but we clearly have a an approved vote with 5.
All,
I'm just letting, Mr. Brown's coming back in right now. He just popped in.
Mr.
All
Brown,
right, there you go. I'm back. I'm out here in the field, so it got spotty internet.
it was a
what-
90-day continuance what we're voting on.
Oh, y'all voting on 90? This is gonna sound interesting, but I needed to see. I was gonna say 30 because we need to get some more. We need to show that there's ample compliance going on. But if 90 is where we're at, then 90 is where we're at. Sorry about that. Who motioned for that? Who made the motion?
Commissioner
I
Young.
believe Mr. Young did.
Okay. All right, this is District 1. Is it is it my turn to vote or something?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that passes unanimously. So, Mr. Botella Lopez, that this case is continued till August 12th. If you finish beforehand, please just let your inspector know, and you don't have to come back here if they sign off on everything.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your help. And yeah, I'll be in contact with my inspector. Just how's everything is working, and I think we go from there.
Ms.
Thank you.
Vitello, if I were you, I'd really try hard to get it done in 30 days. So, because there's no
Man,
guarantee that material is going to be around. That seems to be the biggest issue right now. The shortage
Yeah, I
of
will.
and cost of
Let-
material is starting to go out.
All I got to do in there, just paint, just some paint work, and that's it. And
Okay, yeah, you might want to push that out
yeah.
because you already see gas is running out. So gas is running
Man,
out soon. Lumber is going to run out. You watch.
yeah.
All right.
I know. All right, man.
Thank you, sir, for being here, and thank you for the work you're doing.
All right, what's next?
So that concludes our continued cases. Moving on to the new cases, docket item 8, I understand, was taken off the docket. So we're moving to 2407 Pineview Drive.
That is correct. 2407 Pineview Drive. The date of initial inspection was July 11th, 2019. The hearing was May 13th, 2020. The order to repair was issued June 22nd, 2020, expired July 22nd, 2020. The property did not have to be secured. There are children in the area. There is a school nearby. There is not a history of police complaints. We are requesting an order to repair. The repair costs equate to 46% of the tax value. And I believe Mr. and Mrs. McNeil are on the call. Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
And I believe for a new case, do we need to read the violations into the record?
Should we consider the consent before we do that?
Yes.
Yes, swear them in and then get permission permission for the hearing.
And if I may, I'm also Davis Pereira. I'm an attorney over at Hutchins Law Firm. We represent Nation Star Mortgage. We are the lien holder on the property that has asked us to appear today. So mainly here for informational purposes, but at least wanted to note my attendance today.
Sure, thank you for being here, sir. So we'll get McNeil sworn in and get her, ask their consent for the virtual meeting.
All right, Mr. McNeil, do you swear today that everything you say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, to the best of my recollection.
Okay, sounds good. And now we'll get your consent from Mr. Baker.
Mr. McNeil, because this is a new case and you haven't been to one of these hearings, I assume you have not, I'm going to read the entire consent paragraph to you. North Carolina law requires your consent to proceed with this hearing since the commission is meeting remotely.
Thank you, sir. Function as a doorman.
Perfect. Sorry, whoever has their.
I muted it.
Thank you, thank you, I'm sorry. So North Carolina law requires your consent since the commission is meeting remotely. If you choose to wait until the commission meets in person, the case will be postponed until that time. During this delay, the commission will not make any findings regarding the property or issue any orders against you. Once the commission is able to meet in person, the the commission may proceed with your case, whether you're able to appear or not, either in person or remotely at that time. If your case is delayed until the commission meets in person, the civil penalties and any reinspection fees for monthly safety inspections will continue to be assessed. With that said, do you now consent to the virtual hearing?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Puryear, your client's not here, but you are representing a party in interest. Do you have any objection to the virtual process?
No, we don't. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we'll start with Mr. McNeil. Sir, this property is on for violations of the housing code ordinances. I understand we need to read those into the record.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
the new case, we need to go through the violations.
Thank you. And Inspector Wayman is,
Yes.
thank you, Inspector Wayman. Inspector Wayman, what was the last date of the inspection for this property?
I don't have the information in front of me.
The last video was March 25th, 21.
And you have a video to present to the commission?
Yes.
Is the video a fair and accurate depiction of the property and of the violations on the property?
Yes, it is.
And again, that was March 25th, 2021?
Yes.
And is this a single unit or a multi-unit dwelling?
It is single.
And regarding the violations, is there a major violation of the minimum housing code?
Yes.
Are there more than 5 minor violations?
Yes.
All right, would you please, while the video is playing, would you please read those violations to the record?
Yes. Every bathroom and toilet room shall comply with the ventilation requirements for habitable spaces. Keep dwelling unit clean and sanitary condition. Exterior doors, assemblies, operator systems, if provided, and hardware shall be maintained in good condition. Electrical heating and plumbing facilities need to be maintained. And other than dwelling units, every toilet room floor shall be maintained in a smooth, hard, non-absorbent surface. Heat supply. Every owner and operator of building rents, leases, or lets one more dwelling unit needs to have a operable heating source that will maintain a temperature of 68 degrees. Structure shall be kept free from insect and rodent infestation. Electrical equipment, wiring, and appliances shall be installed and maintained in a safe and approved manner. Interior doors shall fit reasonably well within its frame and shall be capable of opening and closing by properly securing attached jambs, headers, tracks intended by the manufacturer. Interior surfaces, including windows and doors, shall be maintained in good, clean, sanitary condition. Keep all required plumbing and other fixtures in a clean and sanitary condition. Let me see. Exterior surfaces, including but not limited to doors, door and window frames, cornices, porches, trim, balconies, decks, and fences shall be maintained in good condition. Every habitable space in a dwelling shall contain not less than 2 separate and remote receptacle outlets. Every laundry area shall contain not less than 1 grounding type receptacle or a receptacle with a ground fault circuit interrupter. Every bathroom shall contain not less than 1 receptacle. Any new bathroom receptacle outlet shall have ground fault circuit interrupter protection. And single and multiple station smoke alarms shall be tested and maintained in accordance with manufacturer's instructions. There were missing or inoperable smoke detectors in the home.
So, Mr. McNeil.
Sorry, Chairperson, I just have one more question for the record, if I could, while the video is playing. And Mr. Wayman, Mr. McNeil and Ellen M. Frayer McNeil were both served by the certified mail return receipt requested or last mail that was not returned within 10 days to the city, to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. So moving on, Mr. McNeil, tell us what's going on with this property.
Well, since he did the video, we straightened out the deck. All the gutters are cleaned. We have contracted with Aurora Pro Services to come in and basically redo both bathrooms and see what's going on with the electrical and correct that. That's where we are at this point. We've had two bug companies come in, Arrow and Go Forth, and spray and work with that. And also Aptive, I don't know if I'm saying that right, they're out of Raleigh, has come in on the outside and sprayed for bugs and spiders and things. That's where we basically are at this point.
And this looks like a property. I mean, it looks in pretty good condition. These violations seem relatively minor, something that could be fixed in the immediate future. Does that sound right to you, Mr. McNeil?
Well, the things on the inside, I mean, as far as keeping it clean and that type of stuff, yes. The company Aurora Pro are supposed to be, I talked with Mr. Braylon Robinson, I believe on Monday or Friday, and they're supposed to be pulling the permits for all the work that they're going to do in the bathrooms and the electrical stuff. And he's supposed to be getting back to me. Stated at that point that they would try to start the repairs on that stuff sometime next week. But I haven't talked with him, or he hasn't told me an exact start date, but he said they're going to more than likely start next week with that. As far as the heating and the plumbing, I wouldn't anyway. We got a ways to go with that. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do there. We're trying to get in contact with, or we've been told about a place or organization that helps repair the heating and the plumbing, because there's got to be a lot of duct work done with that. And also we had a tree that fell on the house back in 2018, and it damaged the, it's not a heat pump, but the forced air thing, it damaged it. So we're not sure exactly if it's working or if it's not working, but the duct work underneath the house is definitely got to be, a lot of work has got to be done there. So we're looking at quite an expense with that. And the Aurora Pro guys suggested some things that we could do. So we're in the process of trying to see what we can do with that. The rest of the things I believe that we can correct, and I'm not exactly sure what the amount of time would be, but I would think probably a couple of months, simply because of the expense. I'm on disability, and my wife, she works for a call center, so our son is helping us with some of these things. So that's basically where we are.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. And it sounds like you're trying to do right by this property, and I appreciate that. Commissioners, what are your thoughts?
Chairman Isikoff, if I may, this particular property here, this was a case that came before y'all last month that we had to pull out because it had not yet been condemned. This structure is now condemned, and I spoke with communicating with Mr. McNeil earlier today, as well as Inspector Wayman. This property here, since it is now beyond its 30-day period, the inspector is going to have to coordinate with the Greensboro Police Department because of people remaining in the condemned structure. So we are working with our community partners, trying to find another safe place for them to live during this time. But that's why the structure appears occupied. But that will be changing shortly.
Thank you for clarifying that. So Commissioner,
I guess what I would say is, seeing as how it's condemned now, what is the actual plan, Mr. McNeil, that you got going forth? You got Aurora Pro Services in there, I guess, to clean up the mold and mildew and to get keystone issues dealing with the HVAC and no heat. That's critical. I'm trying to see like what your plan is here. It sounds like you're about to be doing a large remodeling job here in a minute, because 2 of the 3 licensed trades aren't passing, and it sounds like you said electrical is going pretty bad too. So, what exactly is your plan and mission for this property? Clearly, no one can live there, so they're going to be moving soon. What do y'all plan to do with it? Y'all plan to sell it? Y'all plan to fix it? What's your plan?
Well, I mean, we've already got the financing for the bathrooms and stuff. I mean, that's
It
supposed
sounds like you got way more than just bathrooms. Sounds like you got a whole HVAC system, a whole plumbing system to roll with. That's what I'm wondering. Like,
the Aurora Pro guys said that the plumbing was okay. They came out on, I think it was Thursday of last week, to do like to see exactly what they had to do to fix the bathrooms and stuff. And they said that the plumbing was okay. As far as
what type of pipes you had, or did they say anything like that? I mean,
went up under the house and they looked at the plumbing and said that wasn't a problem.
Except for that sink that's broken there. Y'all plan to change that sink?
Well, they're totally redoing the bathrooms. They're doing a total remodel of both bathrooms.
Okay.
Total. New sinks, new toilets, new floors, new vanities, the whole
bathtubs
9.
and everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Okay. And then so basically you just want to repair the bathrooms, and that's about all you got. And of course the HVAC system is what you got next up, or what you got next up on that. Well, you gotta have heat. You can't rent the place without heat. Like the law don't allow that. So you gotta have heat.
We own the house. We're the owners. So the Aurora Pro guys, they made some suggestions when they were here last week as to what we could do about the heating stuff. So basically though, we got to come up with some money for that. We got bathrooms and stuff already. That's the done deal. We signed the contracts and everything.
So just so you know, they ain't gonna uncondemn that house till the heat is ready. You need to know that. Like they're not gonna uncondemn it till it's an operational. Like that's code. Like that's state code. You gotta have a heating system in the house. You don't have to have AC, but you gotta have heat. That's critical.
Well, I don't know what to say or what to do on that.
If I may ask,
understand.
excuse me. Sir, have you applied for the Greensboro's rehab program?
Greensboro rehab. No, I don't think so. We went through, I believe the name of the place is Community Housing
Solutions. Yes.
I think that's the name of it. But they repaired the roof and like the ceilings and stuff where the tree fell. And they were supposed to be looking at the heating and the cooling and all of that. But I was informed right before Christmas that they didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And they told me that they were going to relook and I guess see what kind of donations or whatever they had like in January. Well, I spoke with the construction guy, Andrew, and they apparently still didn't have any money or whatever. I put in a call to him last Monday, I believe it was, and he hasn't returned my call. So I'm assuming that they don't have any money to help us with the heating and the cooling and, you know, some of the other little problems that we had.
Okay. So I apologize in the beginning. I just kind of butted in, but I'm Sonia Randolph. I work for the city of Greensboro. I'm their housing rehab administrator. We do work closely with Community Housing Solutions. So typically, if you qualify under them, you would qualify under us. I will get your address from the agenda and mail you guys out a rehab application. Do you all have kids living in the house?
Well, everyone's above 21.
Oh, everyone is above 21. Okay. All right. Thank you. I just needed to know that. We will mail you an application. So under HUD rules, we can fix heat. Usually that does involve the replacement of the whole system. We are not allowed to fix air unless it's medically necessary, per HUD rules.
Which I'm glad you're able to tell him that, because I was just about to start talking to him about the HUD rules on how they have funds available for fixing heat. I think the program is No Family in the Cold or something like that. Whatever the name of it is. I said I thought the name of the program was No Family in the Cold or something like it. It was some name I remember reading about dealing with the HUD program to help with the heating systems.
I'm not familiar with a name or particular name. So we've kind of changed some things now, but there's just one application for everything. And we just kind of tell them what they're qualified for. But
yeah,
I can
Mr.
mail.
McNeil, they can help you get your heating system up. But like I said, they're not going to help you with the air. But heat is required. Air ain't, unfortunately.
Sometimes though, you have to replace the whole entire system, which would include the air. So it still might include that. And we might be able to help with some of the other things that Community Housing Solutions didn't take care of. Are you guys still there? Or because I don't, should I send the application to that address or so to another
To be
address?
honest with you, I mean, we don't have anywhere to go.
Okay.
Mr. Wayman, he gave me some names and I called those numbers last week. As soon as I finished talking to him, I haven't heard anything from them. I left voicemail, my number. He indicated to me today that he emailed and Elizabeth Stanley with one of the places. I haven't heard anything from anybody.
Okay. I can check with her if you'd like me to. And again, where would you like for me to mail your application?
I'll send you the information. I'll send you the information, Sonia.
Okay.
I assume we can still come by the mailbox and get the mail after we move from the bridge. So.
Okay, sure.
I'm just wondering, Miss Sonia, if he can just come pick it up. I mean, do you got to mail it to him, or can he just come pick it up?
He can come
Might
pick
be
it up.
easier to just come pick it up. I mean, it's right down there at the building right next to the courthouse. I mean, I'm sure that'll be easier, especially with the way the mail's running these days. What you think?
That can be done.
Yeah, he can either come pick it up or we can mail it out to him.
Okay, where in
I'll tell you, Mr. McNeil, the building's over there, Washington Street, I want to say. Is that it? Troy, where's the building at?
Yeah, we've got the information. We've been communicating with Mr. McNeil by email. We'll make this happen offline.
Okay.
So it sounds
Any
like
other commissioners got something they want to say?
Sounds like we might need a short continuance to let them look into those programs.
And if I could, this is one of the cases where I would encourage the commission not to continue the case. It's going to require additional inspections, which are additional penalties to the owner that may not be necessary. Also, if this property gets sold, then there's no public record. The ordinance would be a public record of the ongoing violations and put any potential buyer on notice. There's going to be plenty of time after an ordinance is entered for these repairs to be made. It'll be at least 90 days, just as a matter of our process. And then staff has flexibility for additional time. But for a repair, I don't believe staff would get involved unless there's a consent to receivership Troy, you can confirm that for me if you could. But again, for the reasons we said at the beginning of the meeting, I would encourage the commission to consider the evidence presented, which I would argue to you is undoubtedly sufficient to uphold the inspector's order, and enter the ordinance so that the case comes off your docket, and then staff can manage the repairs. Once the repairs are made, then the ordinance can be presented back to the commission to be withdrawn at that time.
I think we on the commission definitely take that to note. Well noted and duly noted. I think I'm gonna go ahead and open it. Well, I'm not gonna do anything. Peter, I think you have a good point of putting out a continuance.
My main concern is if he's going to apply for this program, I know those applications can take time. So I don't want to end up in a situation where it's 90 days and let's say he gets approved and he needs more time, but we've already upheld.
Here's what I would tell you. It takes longer than 90 days. It's going to take longer than 90 days for them to fix what we just saw. I can tell you that right now. Unless we look at some mitigating factors. There's not enough money. There's really not a lot of material, and they don't have anywhere else to go. Those are three very powerful.
If we could, let's consider the consequences of entering an ordinance now. If it's not repaired in 90 days, the potential is that the city, I guess the consequence is that the city at some point comes in and makes the repairs and it imposes those costs as a lien on the property. But again, that would not happen unless the owners consent to the receivership. So my point being that entering the ordinance now is not going to prevent Mr. McNeil from getting the financing, and there's not going to be a consequence to Mr. McNeil for an order to repair ordinance if the ordinance is entered today. It really puts the public on notice that there is a repair order that is outstanding. And really the question before this commission is, should the inspector's order be upheld? And there was a hearing with Mr. McNeil that he did not appeal. So there is somewhat implied consent there to the inspector's order. The purpose of the commission here is to consider the inspector's order, consider the evidence, and make that decision as to whether the order should be upheld. Continuing the case does not serve Mr. McNeil or the public or the commission. It keeps the matter on your docket. And so for those reasons, I would strongly encourage you, please stop continuing the cases. Let's get the flexibility back in staff's hands and put the ordinance on the record so that the public is on notice of these necessary repairs.
One of the things just to add to Mr. Baker is that anytime a continuance is made, safety inspections by the city ordinance is required by the inspector, and that is increased by $150.
Peter and to the other commissioners.
Mr. Powell was making a very important point, and if we could just let him continue, because this is an additional cost to Mr. McNeil that we are causing by continuing the case.
So anytime a case is continued, the first safety inspection of that month is going to cost Mr. McNeil $150. Then the second month is going to be $300, and then the fourth month is going to be $400, and every month thereafter is going to be $400 each month that safety inspection is required. Re-inspection fees are not allowed to be reduced by city ordinance. They are fees. So Mr. McNeil would be billed for those. Re-inspection fees are only eligible to be assessed while the case sits with the commission. Once a case is upheld, re-inspection fees are required to be stopped by city ordinance. Civil penalties, which will continue until the last violation is in compliance, is eligible to be reduced and wiped away down to $500. So any continuances, you're going to have the re-inspection fee is going to be additional cost burden to the property owner. And the hearing that you just had with the reading of these violations and the viewing of this video is the exact same reading of the violations and the video that we'll see on any future continuance. We're not going to be able to allow the inspector to repeatedly go back in the house and jeopardize the evidence gathering of the inspector's initial decision.
What is, tell us about the rehab program and how you can put this family up.
So one of the things that I'm doing while we're sitting here is I'm sending an email to the Housing Coalition as well as our staff requesting an urgent housing need. So there are opportunities available, and that's what we're gonna work with, trying to get Mr. McNeil's and his family housed safely. And then we'll work with Sonia, which the rehab section is in my division. We'll work with her, get that information to Mr. McNeil, and see if we can't provide some assistance in the program. But that's going to be after the family is safely out of the home.
All right, so just so the other
When was the
commissioners
effective
understand.
date of, when was the effective date of Mr. McNeil's the condemnation? Was that, you said it was very recent?
It was over 30 days ago.
The condemnation date was May 6th.
I apologize. I had to walk away for a second, but I have a question. I feel like my concern with all of this is that we know how long it takes to get this funding, should Mr. McNeil be eligible for it. And at the end of 90 days, you know, I know the city has the ability to give more time to allow the repairs to happen by the homeowner, but there's no steadfast rule in that. And I think our concern, and generally has been in the past, that if we continue it, then we know that he's got the time to be able to make those repairs and to give him the opportunity to do that. So
If we could, can we address that issue though? And again, I want to impress upon the commission that the commission's role is to uphold or not uphold the inspector's order, not to consider continuation for rehab loans or other concerns. It's to hear the cases presented to you. But with that said, Troy, again, at the end of 90 days, what would be the process for the city's involvement in making repairs on this property, if there is any?
Yeah, so one of the other things, Commissioner Furman, be comforted that just because you uphold a decision is not going to make Mr. McNeil and them ineligible for rehab. We are going to follow through with rehab in the program and trying to get this home back to safe occupancy and get Mr. McNeil's family back in the home. Because the purpose of our work is to have healthy, safe, and affordable housing. That's the end result. But to Mr. Baker's point, at the end of 90 days, this is a repair order. So the city is not going to be stepping in to make any repairs against anyone's will. The only avenue for repairs in a piloted program is the receivership program. And that would have to come back to you to authorize a program for receivership. So even with an order to repair, I don't see any consequences because all that you're doing is you're upholding that, yes, the inspector alleges these housing violations are present. They provide you with the evidence, and then you're agreeing and measuring that, yes, we see the evidence and we see that Mr. McNeil has not provided any evidence to disprove that the inspector is incorrect. Therefore, the decision of the inspector would generally be upheld. Continuing down the road, if when Mr. McNeil is correcting violations, he is then altering his order to repair by making those notations. And if at that time, Mr. McNeil or his attorney wanted to, say the commission decided to uphold an order and they wanted to appeal the case to Superior Court to appeal your decision, the information provided to you at that time is the only information that gets to go to the Superior Court to determine whether due process was done. And that's when they would look back to see, okay, you had this many, that you had 14 violations on this date, but the day that you decided to uphold the decision, there's 8 violations. So why did you uphold the order that had 14 violations when in fact they only have 8 violations? And then it gets remanded back to do something different with the case. So what Mr. Baker has shared is that with our continuing to take videos, continuing to make adjustments to the violation list, we are jeopardizing your decision as a commission in which you're supposed to determine, is the inspector right or is the inspector wrong? That's the reason why we're now having to make sure that we give you a complete evidentiary packet so that you can make that decision.
And I apologize that this was not raised earlier, either by the city attorney's office or by me. It is clearly something that Troy and I have discussed since the last meeting, but I do want to emphasize very clearly that by continuing the case, there will be fees assessed against Mr. McNeil's property that cannot be reduced as part of the penalty reduction program. It is costing him money to continue the case. That's big part of the reason why I'm encouraging the commission to consider that your role here is simply to decide to uphold the inspector's order or not uphold the inspector's order, but your role really is not to continue the case because it's not serving the purpose of the commission, the purpose of the city, the purpose of the public, or Mr. McNeil and his family.
Chairman Isaacoff, I guess we're having that long discussion right now. And it seems like a pretty complicated one, and for better or worse, Mr. McNeil is the subject of our lengthy conversation, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of the stuff. Maybe this is just a minor question, but property was condemned on the 6th of May, and it's a week later, and I think probably all of us are concerned about Mr. McNeil and his family and where they're going to go next. Was there any opportunity of the city to have maybe passed on some of this information to him at the time of the May 6th?
Yes, so May 6th is the condemnation date, which would mean 30 days prior to May 6th is when the inspector issued the notice of condemnation, that would occur. And from the conversations earlier today, Inspector Wayman did say that he provided the contact information for the Greensboro Housing Coalition, as well. I'm not sure about the other entities, but as well as our homeless prevention coordinator at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. McNeil had shared that he had called and left a voice message with somebody, but I'm not certain that if Inspector Wayman, and he can chime in, I'm not sure if he's heard back from Mr. McNeil since that time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that all of us are just concerned that Mr. McNeil, if he's not at that property right now, has got to be out of it, right?
Yeah, and a continuance of this hearing is not going to allow him to stay or leave.
A bit about the continuation thing. I think you guys have gone over that pretty well. And maybe some of the other council members can speak to this point, but I think we're also a bit concerned about what happens to Mr. McNeil, in as much as we're understanding we're beginning to understand all the ramifications of upholding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Perhaps it'd be best to talk with Mr. McNeil directly. Mr. McNeil, have you followed what we've been discussing about penalties and upholding versus continuing?
I'm kind of like the commissioner there. I'm not sure how I have my head wrapped around all of that, other than it's not gonna, if it's continued, then I will incur more fees.
Yeah,
that
so
I
let me,
can't do anything about.
can I take a stab at it, Peter?
Sure, go ahead, Quentin.
Oh, thank you, thank you. All right, Mr. McNeil, here's what you got. If we continue this case, you're gonna start getting some penalties and fees that are gonna be pretty high, right?
Right.
And there's no way for you to be able to lessen those penalties and fees. Now, if it was just the $10 a day and you guys were working on it, you could get it lessened down to $500 and appeal it. But for the safety inspections and re-inspections, you can't get rid of those. So if it comes up to $2,000, right? Let's say it's 6 months and it's $2,000, that's just, oh, there ain't no way to lessen that. Right. Second of all, there isn't any money really that we can, that's out there. So currently you're in a rock and a hard place. So it's not in your best interest if we continue it. That's kind of what the city's trying to get at, or what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I kind of get that.
The human factor of us, right? Like our emotional part is like, we don't want bad to happen to you. That's not why we're here. Then the fiscal part of us is like, well, we don't want to charge them a whole bunch of money. If we uphold this case, what's going to happen is you're going to have 90 days to work on it with Aurora Serve Pro and get it out there. You can do it yourself. And after 90 days, the city's going to step in and say, all right, we're going to fix it for you, and you just owe us. Then you can pay it back.
Excuse me.
The interest right now is below at the city.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure clarify. I don't think that is the case, that the city's going to step in 90 days and make the repairs at his expense. And this is my concern with the commission of giving this advice. You have a limited issue to decide if the inspector's order should be upheld based upon the evidence presented. The other issues are not before this commission and not within the commission's role to advise the citizen of those issues. And further, Mr. Powell's made very, he will not step in 90 days and make those repairs on behalf of Mr. McNeil. There's a limited question before this commission whether to uphold the inspector's order. That's the extent of the question and the issues before the commission pursuant to the city's ordinances.
I think the better way to word it would have been after 90 days, the city has the ability to step in. And I understand there's a process to that. It's not like on day 91, they're sending in a contractor and asserting a lien, but after 90 days,
right,
they have the right to do that.
They do have the right to do that. Meanwhile, he'll be applying for the program through the HUD and variable housing programs through the city to help get it going on. So really the question before us is, if we continue it, do we want him to accrue more costs? This is one of the rare ones that we're seeing here. You see what I'm saying? If we do continue it, it's not going to fix anything to continue it, basically.
One thing I want to ask, just from a practical perspective, because Mr. McNeil, I'm very concerned about you not having a roof over your head, because right now the property, they're saying you can't technically be there. I don't want to be in the situation where we as a commission are forcing you out of a property into a worse situation, for lack of a better word. I know it was said you've gotten in touch with Greensboro Housing Coalition. What are your prospects for if you had to live somewhere else for a temporary period of time? What are your prospects for that?
We don't have anywhere to go. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like I say, I'm on disability. My wife has a pretty low, it's a job, but it's pretty low paying. We are on the hook for these bathrooms. To be honest with you, my health is not great. We're not going to probably finish paying for these bathrooms. I'll probably be dead before we finish paying. It's complete remodel of both bathrooms. But then that leaves the heat or whatever. So there's not a lot of money out there for us to do anything with. We don't have family, whatever here. We just don't have anywhere to go. And I'm assuming, y'all gonna force us out. So, I mean, I don't know. You know,
And I'm
you
saying I
know,
want to work with you to find a way not to have that happen. I want you to have a house and a roof over your head.
And the sad part about it, Peter, is that now that it's condemned, ain't nothing we can do about it anyway. It's condemned. You can't stay there when it's condemned. Period. I don't know how that's going to work out.
So maybe
Yeah, I think Troy just said that it was condemned, and so now they're going to be working with Greensboro Police Department or Sheriff's Department, or whatever, and they need to be, they need to be on top of that ASAP. That's the sad part.
Teams, so the housing advocates that I just emailed earlier, they are working for a solution. They did message us back. They believe they would be eligible under the GUM program. So they're going to send us information, and just as soon as I have it, we're going to connect them with Mr. McNeil and his family.
Logistically, what's the mechanism for if a house like this is condemned? I assume eventually there's going to be some sort of police action to say you can't be living here. What is the time frame? What is the mechanism for that type of thing?
Upon arrival is pretty much it. Once you're past the condemnation day, you can't occupy the structure. If we allow a person to occupy the structure and the structure burns down because of the electrical hazards or some other health hazard happens, then we're on the line for it. But being under oath as a code official, the ordinance is fairly clear. That's why we strive to strengthen our partnerships and to have plans in place. And like I said, we've dealt with this 2 months ago when one of the cases came up, almost similar situation. They were given information and they didn't follow up or follow through, and they believed that this particular hearing would allow them to remain inside of a condemned structure. And that's why they waited till the day of the hearing. But we were able to get them placed into a hotel room. And we believe that's probably what's going to happen here. Is the GUM program has eligibility for hotel assistance. But like I said, we strive for those stronger partnerships. And I'm linked in with that. And that's exactly, this is the work that we do in trying to get people into safe housing. So,
but in theory, tomorrow the police go and say you need to leave the property.
Yes, if the inspector arrives with goes to the house to verify that the structure is vacant, secure, and that the placard is displayed on the structure, and he arrives there and he sees that people are there or living there, then he would have to summons a police officer to the property.
Mm-hmm. And I just, from a practical perspective, I don't want to issue a ruling or take action that's going to resolve and take the roof over their head.
Upholding the order and entering the ordinance has no bearing on the condemnation. The property has already been condemned. Upholding the order and entering the ordinance has no bearing on that. If anything, it's just increasing the fees to Mr. McNeil and to his family that they cannot avoid. And it also causes staff to have to go back out and use those resources that can be applied to other properties. And again, and I very much appreciate the commission's concern about Mr. McNeil and about his family. And I think we should all be concerned about Mr. McNeil and his family. And I don't want to sound in any way inhumane, but those concerns really are outside the scope of the commission. The commission's job is to hear the evidence regarding the inspector's order that has been heard already by the McNeil family, was not appealed. The question is whether or not the evidence upholds that order or does not. That is the limited issue to this commission to be decided so that we can move on to the other cases. Continuing the cases.
I understand that, but I guess I'm saying, regardless of the commission's concerns, that's my concern, that I don't want to put someone out on the street.
Upholding the order.
I agree with Mr. With Chairman Isaacoff, and I think as this thing goes on and on, we understand Attorney Baker's point. I would love to be able to hear from the other council members as well if they have opinions about this matter at this point.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
You know, I spoke with Mr. Wayman about a month ago. He called me because this meeting right here was supposed to have happened last month. The day before the meeting was to happen, he called me and said that he had spoke to the city attorney or whoever, and because he had already actually, when that video was taken, it was about a month ago or so. And some of the stuff on the outside we've already straightened up, like cleaning up the patio and some of that kind of stuff like that. And also cleaning the house. But what he said to me, and his exact words were that we had about 30 days or so to make the repairs or to do what we needed to do. I didn't even understand anything about us being able to appeal anything or any of that. There was no exact date given, like you say, oh, the house is going to be condemned on May the 6th. Well, we didn't have that information. So we couldn't appeal it because I didn't even know anything about the process. So when he called like Monday, this past Monday, to say that the house had been condemned or whatever on May the 6th, we didn't understand. May the 6th. We didn't even know anything about that date. What we heard was we had 30 days or so to make the repairs. Well, we called Aurora Pro. They came out and did an estimate. We got the financing or whatever as quickly as we possibly could for that and the electrical stuff. That's it. So I'm perplexed.
And Mr. McNeil, just to explain where we're at with what we're thinking is, so you're in a rock and a hard place, as it was said. So are we. The issue is the property was condemned on May 6th, which means technically, legally, you don't have the right to be living there. And theoretically, the inspector could come with the police and say you have to get out. The practical thing I'm looking at is I don't want that to happen for you. I don't see that benefiting you or the city or our community in any way to throw you out of your house. What we're trying to figure out is if there's a way we can figure out something that still honors that code violation saying this property can't be occupied, but make sure that you and your family have safe and affordable housing. Have you had any contact, Mr. McNeil? What's been your contact with the housing?
Could you repeat that?
What's been your contact with the Greensboro housing?
I haven't had contact with him. I mean, I called the numbers that he gave me. No one answered. So I left voicemail saying what my situation was and my phone number. Now, that's been a week because as soon as I got off the phone with him, I believe it was on Monday, I called them. And I didn't actually speak to anyone. I got the voicemails. I left my information. I said a little bit about my situation. Haven't heard one peep.
Mr. McNeil, how many people are in your home? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
There's 5 people.
5 people. You said everybody was above 21. Could you tell me the ages real quickly?
22, 27, and 30. Well, 31. He's getting ready to turn 31.
All right, and the other 2 people, their age?
I'm 61 and my wife is 55.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. The reason I'm asking that information is I'm trying to get you in emergency housing. as we speak. And then we'll look at the long-term rapid rehousing once we get you in the hotel room. All right, carry on.
Okay.
So my concern is perhaps even just some informal confirmation from city staff that until Mr. McNeil and his family have some sort of housing option available, that they're not going to be kicked out of this property. I understand that theoretically they could, you know, as soon as right when this meeting ends. But I just want to make sure that's not going to happen until there is some other option figured out.
Troy, I think the question would be to you. My understanding is, would the city staff escort the McNeil family out of the house if they have nowhere else to go? Even if this ordinance is entered, or regardless of whether the ordinance is entered?
Well, I've seen one of the violations in the home does show it's been corrected, and that is there's fire smoke detectors in the home. You know, for the safety. Like I said, we're not going to stop. We're not going to go over and have them escorted out of the home now, you know, like right after this meeting or anything. But do understand the due diligence does rest as with the city code officials on protecting the safety of persons in a structure that we know to be unfit for human habitation. So that's why we're working diligently to find, you know, to place them in a safe housing environment. But I guess to your point, we're going to try our best to have a place for them to go.
I think that's the question. Will we put them out of the home if we don't have a place for them to go?
Yeah, that's my concern.
Troy, do you understand that question? Will staff put them out if they don't have a place to go?
And I would not see that result as promoting safe and affordable housing if we're taking them from a property that does have violations, but is still a roof over their head to no roof over their head. We're going from bad housing to housing that doesn't seem to be in line with the goals of the.
And I believe that I would have to say no to your question. Because of our relationship and our partnerships with our housing advocates, that we're going to make sure that any family that we have to displace based on the ordinance is going to have a safe place to stay.
And if I can, for clarifying purposes,
what is the major violation? I didn't see. I mean, I read all the codes and stuff, but I know there has to be one major or 5 minors. What's the major violation that causes house to be condemned?
At this time right now, the main concern that I have, the 2 bathrooms, both of them have moisture damaged flooring, subflooring. I'm concerned about someone stepping through them. But in and around the
I totally understand.
Areas,
yeah,
that's gonna.
So basically, the toilet's been leaking a long time, and it ain't ever got fixed. And by not having it fixed, it caused the floor to get soft. By having the floor to get soft, it's made the floor rot away in the joists. Correct.
Part of the flooring problem in the one bathroom was when the tree fell through. It took a long time for us to actually find someone. They topped up the people that took the tree off the house. They topped it up, but it rained in there really bad. And so that was part of the problem in the one bathroom. But we have Aurora Pro, who the only thing left for them to do is give me the start date of when they're going to come and do the work.
You already done paid them and everything?
Yeah, the financing is secure. And what the financing people told me was that they're actually not going to pay them until they finish the work. But the contracts are signed. Okay. I don't know if you know Braylon Robinson, but he's the one in charge.
I don't know him. I know the company. They all right. They do all right. Just for the other commissioners, to give you a timetable on how fast you can fix a bathroom with a whole crew growing, you can remodel a bathroom in one afternoon. Just so you know, if it's not doing tile or anything like that, they can have it done. If they start at 6 o'clock in the morning, it could be done by 7 o'clock in the evening. That includes flooring and nails. Just so the other commissioners can know, like, this is not a 3-week process. It shouldn't be, at least not if you have enough manpower. It always deals on manpower. So just so you know, and if they do, I guess it's for city staff, if they can get the bathrooms remodeled in, let's say, 3 days, let's say they do one day, one another day, get it inspected, would that be able to leave them in the house? If they can clear that major violation.
At this point, the property has been condemned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nothing you can do.
I'd like to point something out if I could, please. This case was actually started in 2019 by another inspector. And then I acquired this case last year, and then reviewing some of the steps, I noticed that it didn't follow procedure, so I restarted the case. But even at that, I'd like to point out that, you know, even at my detriment, I did kind of drag my feet taking this to the commission, because it's difficult for inspectors to have to force someone out of their home to begin with, but when it's owner occupied, it's a little harder for me too. I mean, I get that. So there is the human aspect there for us as well when we're in there doing those. But at some point, you have to kind of draw the line, knowing that there are issues in the home where someone could be injured. So that's why last month when we did the review for the April meeting, you know, it was discovered that I hadn't sent the condemnation letter, that they weren't going to bring it to you last month. I essentially had to do that. And when I did speak with Mr. McNeil, yes, I did tell him, I said, you've got 30 more days. I said, but at the end of that, you would have to vacate. So I feel that I was clear on that. And I also wanted to point out something else as well. I did speak with Melissa Burton with the rehab program back in March about this. I spoke with her verbally, and I did send her an email with Mr. McNeil's information for her to look into. So, like I say, the human aspect that you think may be missing isn't missing. We feel it too, and we tried to avoid displacing people whenever possible.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. Here's what I propose on this one, and this is a tricky case with everything going on. I would propose upholding the inspector, given that was the penalty that is assessed. But at the same time, I want to say that it's my personal opinion as a commissioner that removing someone from a house when they have nowhere to go is not in line with our commission guiding principles of promoting safety. And I know the city has connections with the House Coalition, with GUM, and I would very strongly encourage, and I think it would be in line with our principles, to find alternative housing for Mr. McNeil and his family prior to any type of legal action.
Is that, I just want to clarify, is that a motion to uphold the inspector's order and to issue the ordinance for repair?
I suppose it is, and I'll welcome any other discussion from the commissioners. I think we all understand kind of the big picture of what's going on here.
Chairman Isaacoff, I very much appreciate your personal statement about the emotional tone of it, because I share it. I'm also kind of puzzled too, because I think pretty much whether this case came before us today or not, this property has already been condemned. And like you were saying, Chairman Isaacoff, this property owner, who's also the resident there at the house, is going to get vacated. He's going to get kicked out of his house either way. So from what I'm hearing is, we can uphold, and my inclination, yeah, we're going to probably uphold this thing. He's between a rock and a hard place, as we've heard. What I don't get is when we talk about the human element, I definitely hear what Inspector Wayman is saying. I think he's on target. He's humane guy trying to make sure that a bad situation doesn't get even worse. But surely there's got to be a connection when we know someone's about to get kicked out, to have this stuff lined up. They got to go somewhere. And I guess we're figuring it out right now, just based upon this hearing and Mr. McNeil being here and everything. I would just guess if we know we're heading down this road, then you know, we might as well go ahead and start making these arrangements.
All right, see you later this evening.
Mhm. And I agree with that, Mr. Young, and I appreciate your thoughts. And I trust city staff that, you know, I know they have those connections. I know they've worked with homeowners in this situation in the past, and I would trust and expect that that would happen here prior to him being removed from the property.
I just hope that it doesn't get to this point in the case where now I feel like our hand is being forced, because if we don't do our due diligence, we'll actually be hurting the homeowner more than we're helping them.
If we don't uphold the inspector, they've already stated they have money issues, and those money issues are going to become of direct correlation even once they get it fixed or not. We all know that apparently it's going to get fixed, but that there's no way to appeal these charges. So it's almost we almost have to uphold the inspector, so that way, you know, there's not a $2,000 or $3,000 more added on to the bill that they can't appeal.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just got a chat message from Councilperson Hightower. She would like to speak.
Yes, is she part of this meeting?
She is on here. Let me ask her to unmute.
Yes, we'll recognize Councilman Hightower.
I just sent a councilperson. Can you hear? I just sent an unmute request. Hey.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I here?
Welcome.
Okay. Hi, thank you very much. I have been here since the beginning of the meeting, and I'm listening very intently. You know, I attend a lot of your housing meetings, as you know. What I would like to say to you all is that one of the things I do know, and I hear your concerns, but I do know staff make sure people are not just put out in the street. I had a case recently myself that we had to condemn a property, and staff made sure that lady and her 3 sons got into a hotel. And from that hotel, we moved them into better housing. So that is something that staff, neighborhood development and code both take into consideration. It is not to put people on the street, but it is to put people in safe spaces. And so as I look at properties where people have to live, they shouldn't have to live like that. They don't deserve that. I agree with you, but it is not a callous behavior and a move that is being done. Staff has heard us talk about housing being our priority, and safe, affordable housing for all is our goal. And so staff has heard us and is working toward that. Thank you for feeling the way you do and being concerned and emotional about it, because it is emotional. I agree, and I understand Mr. Baker's position, that often you got to kind of hold the emotion aside and look at the facts. In this case, I think it's very good conversation. I also would suggest to Mr. Baker and the staff that perhaps we have another intense training with our commission, because I think there's some things they don't know that are happening and that are being done. I think that will help them in their decision making. And so I hope that you all can find some time to do that with them, because I think you all sit in very important positions and you make very important decisions, and those are valued. But we are all in this together for the sake and the safety of our residents. And so however we can help them, we do. And so I just felt like I needed to say that as I listened to this conversation. So thank you for letting.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank you, Councilwoman, for your input. I just have a question for the Councilwoman. Would it be your recommendation, given all the circumstances, to uphold the order to avoid further penalties accruing?
Yes, sir. It would be. We don't want to have financial burdens on our residents either. And so if we're going to put them in a better position, we don't need to put them in a worse situation. You know what I'm saying? If the person is already, and sounds like to me personally, this is just me, when he's getting the bathroom fixed, he may be in a financial contract that I don't think may be beneficial. Just listen to some of his comments. The interest rates could be higher. That's not good either. So I think we just have to make sure residents know what we city, what we offer. We partner with Community Housing Solution, Urban Ministry, Salvation Army. I mean, we've got rental assistance, mortgage assistance. I mean, we're gonna do everything we can to ensure that resident lives safe. But I think in this instance, just my personal opinion, now you asked me, so I'm on the commission. Y'all don't make no decision, but I would think so. That would, at this point, yeah. And we will make sure he gets into safe space.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking.
All right, so we've had a large amount of discussion on this particular case, and I think we all understand what's going on here and all the aspects that are in play. I believe I had motioned for an order to a request to uphold the order of the inspector. This would be a request for repairs, with the mentality behind it being we're preventing Mr. McNeil and his family from accruing further penalties, and we're trusting the city resources to find alternative housing for them. So I'm putting that out there as a motion.
Second it.
You have a second from Mr. Brown? Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll call the question.
Thank you. Chair Isikoff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown?
Yep.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
The audio, that was, no.
I said
Could you answer,
yes.
please? Thank you, sir. Commissioner Biggerstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell?
Yes.
Commissioner Furman?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for your votes and for your patience in the conversation. Greatly appreciated. And thank you, Commissioner Hightower, very much.
Thank you.
Mr. McNeil.
What
Mr.
this means is there is an order to repair that has been upheld by this commission. After 90 days from today's date, it will go into the queue to have the city hire someone to repair the property. And those repair costs would eventually become a lien on the property. If you can fix it before that happens, then you would not incur those costs. The reason we're upholding today is, as has been discussed, you could get upwards of $2,000 worth of penalties if we were to continue it. So we don't want to have you incur that. I'd encourage you to stay in close contact with the city, because they do have programs and connections with various housing organizations to place you somewhere while this property is instead being repaired.
Okay.
Does that all make sense to Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So all that being said, I will read the order to repair into the record. This is a finding of fact for an order to repair. The property involved in this matter is located at 2407 Pineview Drive, Greensboro, North Carolina. The property owner and all parties in interest in said property have been properly served with all complaints, notices, or orders issued in this matter in compliance with the law. The property owner and all parties in interest were afforded their due process rights in compliance with the law. The property in question has more than 5 separate types of violations of any of the minimum housing code standards, and the cost to repair said violations is less than 50% of the value of the structure. The continuation of the dwelling in its current condition is detrimental to the health, safety, morals, and welfare of the people within the city of Greensboro and is unfit for human habitation. Based upon the foregoing findings of fact, it is hereby concluded that 1, this matter is properly before this commission, 2, the described structure is dangerous and unfit for human habitation, and 3, the order of the inspector is proper in all respects. Therefore, it is ordered, resolved, and decreed by a vote of this commission that the inspector's order to repair is upheld this the 13th day of May 2021. So, sir, you have 90 days if you can fix it. I'd very much encourage you to stay in close contact with the city, with the Housing Coalition, with Greensboro Urban Ministries. They're going to find you somewhere else to go, and they'll give you assistance doing that.
Okay.
Mr. McNeil, please watch your cell phone. I did hear back from the Salvation Army and the Housing Coalition and our staff that they're trying to reach you on your phone, and you may be on your phone for this meeting.
Yes.
So if you have a missed call, that is them trying to call you. They're going to try to set you up with emergency housing in a hotel, and then work more toward the rapid rehousing programs that we have. Okay.
Okay.
If you have any problems reaching anyone, please call Inspector Wayman, and he'll let us know, and we'll get this taken care of for you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I know, seeing as we have one more case and then some resends and the one administrative item, we usually take a break at 3:30, and I very much would appreciate a chance to use the facilities. I'm going to entertain all motion for a brief 5-minute recess, coming back at, let's say, 3:40. Is there a second for that?
Second for that.
Second, third.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'm just going to say that passes. So we're in a 5-minute recess till 3:40, and we'll call the meeting back to order at that point. Thank you all. We're in recess. Troy, how are we looking on everyone being back to the meeting in terms of commissioners?
Let's see, I see Commissioner Young, Commissioner Biggerstaff, Commissioner Waddell,
We'll wait a couple.
don't see Vice Chairman Brown. Let me look on the other list.
I'm here too.
Oh, there you are. Okay, yes, Commissioner Firm. I was looking for videos. I'm sorry. It doesn't, you know, when you have more than a certain number, it doesn't show everybody's box on the screen.
I hear you.
But I don't see Vice Chairman Brown in the chat, and he's not in the waiting room. He might have lost his service again. So Commissioner, Chairman Isikoff, I'll share with you as well as other commissioners that are on the phone on here now. Just to let you know what Councilperson Hightower had alluded to earlier is that we do take it personally to be able to house people safely, especially in a structure that is unsafe. You know, we know that we have to get them from an unsafe environment to a safe environment. So I did just get a message back, and I have asked Mr. Wayman to contact Mr. McNeil and give him the number. But confirmation did come back that at First Baptist Church in Tyra has made hotel arrangements for the family. So they're getting him a phone number so they can get them into that safe environment.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. And I by no means intended to imply that wasn't a serious factor that staff considers. I know you all work tight for that, and I'm really glad to hear that that's going to work out.
Commissioner Brown is on the phone. He said he should be in the waiting room now.
Mr. Powell, I also wanted to reiterate, I don't think anybody on our commission thinks that the city doesn't work tirelessly for that. But we also know exactly how overwhelmed you are with stuff.
Yeah. And there's I'm gonna put a process in place that where we can review the agendas more than 30 days in advance to see if we cannot identify situations like this so that we don't end up having a crisis the day of the commission meeting. So I will put that in place, and we'll make sure that happens better. We'll do better next time.
And y'all are doing great.
Mr. Powell, I just want to say thanks so much. I mean, I appreciate you and your staff looking in, so it's a little bit earlier, and maybe even some of the residents and stuff would be saved a lot of hassle. You know, you guys working together just to support them earlier on. And I do want to say too, Chairman Isikoff, that Inspector Wayman, you know, he was there at Summit Cone when that fire happened, and I saw him working really diligently there, and that was a mess, and a lot of people were suffering. I know he does a good job and everything. So,
absolutely,
I appreciate the inspectors out there doing the good job.
Troy, may I ask a question? And this I'm gonna go back to new guy question to some extent. But when a case comes before you as a new case, hasn't it already been condemned before it comes before you, or is that just my misunderstanding?
It is. All structures that are heard at the commission are condemned, except for the person that appeals the inspector's initial hearing. When the inspector first issues that or holds that initial hearing, they've not yet arrived at the stage for condemnation. The only other situation that could result in an appeal in which something is condemned would be an emergency condemnation or a 48-hour rule. If a 48-hour rule is in place where the inspector does condemn, they do have a right to appeal that decision. Therefore, that could arrive to the commission as well. But generally, most all cases that come to the commission are all condemned already. This is a special case just because the person happened to still be in the home. And in cases like that, it's sometimes difficult to remove someone from the home. But there is a process for it. And like Councilperson Hightower said, we're not going to put them on the street and create homelessness. we're gonna pull a partner in, and we're gonna, because that's the relationship we have with here in Greensboro.
Thank you. I appreciate the solid answer.
So I think, do we have all the commissioners back?
Yes, everybody's present.
All right, I'm gonna call this meeting back to order. So we have finished docket item number 9, moving to number 10, 109 Duffy Avenue. I understand this is a chapter 17 case.
That is correct.
I understand city staff may have some questions.
Okay. I'll go ahead and read it in. So for 109 Duffy Avenue, it is chapter 17. The date of initial inspection was March 10th, 2021. The chapter 17 notice to demolish was issued March 10th, 21, and expired on the March 20th, 2021. The property did not there are not children in the area. There's not a history of police complaints, and we are seeking an order to demolish. The repair cost is 198% of the value. And the owner is Fraser Glenn Investments. And somebody from there is on the call.
That is me.
Okay.
And I just wanted to clarify, are they a recent purchaser?
We just purchased the property April 15th.
And I understand we'll have to read the violations into the record.
Yes, I think we need to have, if I could just go over the consent first before we do that. And then I believe we need to get Mr. Glenn sworn to do that.
Yes, please.
Mr. Bullins, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I thought that Mr. No, it's okay. Mr. Baker was over. But Mr. Glenn, do you swear that everything you say today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. You may proceed, Mr. Baker.
Thank you. And Mr. Glenn, even though you've probably heard this already, because this is a new case, I'm going to read the full script to you regarding consent. North Carolina law requires your consent to participate in this hearing since the commission is appearing remotely. If you choose to wait until the commission meets in person, the case will be postponed until that time. During this delay, the commission will not make any findings regarding the property or issue any orders against you. Once the commission is able to meet in person, the commission may then proceed with your case, even if you are not able to appear in person or if you are only allowed to appear remotely or virtually. If your case is delayed until the commission meets in person, the civil penalties and reinspection fees for monthly safety inspections will continue to be assessed against you. With that said, do you now consent to this virtual hearing?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Thank you, sir. And our inspector is Inspector Roach.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, reading off what I have is from initially the chapter 17, which were a condition or circumstances which expose the general public to safety, health, or fire hazards, and structures, remains of structures, a lot with a condition that is detrimental, dangerous, or hazardous to the public safety, health, and welfare. Once I got there to, if I may say, to video for the portion of the chapter 17, Mr. Glenn had brought crews in, a number of crews in, and performed massive cleanup for trees that were down, which rendered the structure unsafe to go in. And there hadn't been any write-up as far as the violations on the inside because I couldn't enter for safety reasons. I have to go back out now, being that I'm changing it from chapter 17 to order to repair and add to the list of what needs to be done. But most of it from the inside now at this point, things at a rough end stage. He's pulled permits. I think the electrical is passed already. He's pulled permits, and about everything on the inside is at a rough end stage. He could explain further to you.
And if I could, for the purpose of the record, let me, and Mr. Powell's also texted me, I want to make sure I understand. This case was brought on in order to demolish regarding the Chapter 17 issues. And if I understand correctly, those Chapter 17 issues, we believe have now been resolved. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you believe you have reason to inspect the interior for minimum standards issue. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. Then I would recommend that at this point to staff that the case be withdrawn and that we proceed with our normal procedures on a minimum standards investigation and determine if there, in fact, at that point is an order to repair and that the owners would be entitled to the due process of the inspector's hearing and then to either appeal or allow the case to go forward for an ordinance at that point. And I would defer to Mr. Powell if I'm incorrect in that assessment of that recommendation, if you will chime in and either confirm or correct me.
Yes, that would be correct. If this is a Chapter 17 violation cited only, and we do have compliance with it, then yes, let's withdraw and let's start a Chapter 11 -31 case with a new order to repair and a new hearing. And let's travel that route because we cannot marry Chapter 17 and Chapter 11 together.
And if I'm correct, that does not require a vote of the commission. That's just simply the staff withdrawing the case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you.
So actually, I'm sorry. We would actually need a vote because now it has arrived and we've read it into the record. So staff at this point would recommend to the commission that we withdraw this case and we would ask for their approval.
Thank you.
So, and this is for to clarify everything you just said. So this case was originally brought as what's called a Chapter 17 nuisance case because it was in imminent danger of causing harm to people. The issues that caused it to be a Chapter 17 case, which is great. There are still housing code violations, but that would be treated as a standard case like the rest we've heard today, not a Chapter 17 nuisance case. So what we're going to do is basically go back to the beginning and treat this case as normal housing code violation with the inspector coming out, giving a list of violations, having a hearing, all of that. So what we're going to do is vote to withdraw it from today's docket so that you have the check with the inspector. Does that make sense, sir?
Yes, it makes sense to me.
All right. So I'm going to make a motion to withdraw docket item 10, 109 Duffy Avenue from our docket. Is there a second for that?
Second.
With a second from Mr. Young. Any further discussion? Call the question.
Chair Isaacoff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Biggerstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell?
Yes.
Commissioner Furman?
Yes.
And Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. So, sir, this doesn't mean you're done with dealing with the Housing Commission. It means that it's no longer a Chapter 17 case. And what you need to do is be in touch with your inspector, Mr. Roach, so that you can determine how best to proceed and fix the stuff that needs to be fixed.
Sounds like a winner.
All right. Thank you, sir, for being here today. Next up, we have another withdrawal, docket item 11, 402 Mount Olive Drive. I'm just going to make a motion to withdraw. Is there a second?
Second.
Call the question.
Chair Isikoff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
That passes unanimously. And we have 3 requests. Sorry, I thought I heard someone saying something. I think it was just feedback. We've got 3 requests to rescind 4400 Voss Avenue, 1106 Valley View Street, and 309 Spicewood Drive. I'll make a motion to rescind prior commission resolutions for those 3 cases.
I'll second.
We have a second. We'll call the question.
Chair Isikoff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
That passes unanimously. That concludes our cases for today. I understand we did have one additional agenda item of continuing the discussion that Mr. Baker brought up at the beginning of the meeting about continuances and how we treat that. So I'll open the floor back up to discussion on that point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, city staff can be dismissed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Powell.
This is Carolyn. Tony, didn't I hear you say that you sent an explanation in writing to maybe to Troy and to Peter?
I did just introduce the agenda item, and I'm happy to send it to all the commissioners. It was not leaving the rest of the commissioners out. It was just to get the issue on the agenda. But I'm happy to send it to everyone and can do so here or immediately after the meeting.
Well, what I was going to say is I think this was a wonderful discussion today. I was so appreciative of, first, I was glad I could stay, but I was very appreciative of, I think, everyone's concern, commissioners and staff for safe housing in Greensboro. And I think we probably understand it a lot better than we ever would have. And having an actual case here, as we talked about it, I think was really great. But anything that you could send us in writing, I just think would be helpful for us to have. I liked the idea that, you know, we have more things like this in staff and commissioner training. And again, anything that I have, if I have it in advance, like a day that I can be reading it and thinking about it and understanding it, I know it's really helpful for me.
Absolutely. And again, I apologize. You know, they say the practice of law is practice. And this is an issue, and Mr. Eiskopf, I heard the chuckle because he's doing the same.
I understand you.
But it was an issue that literally came up to me just a couple of days ago, and I discussed it with Troy and of course with Mr. Wilson before sending it to Chair Eiskopf and Vice Chair Brown. So certainly did not intend to blindside the other commissioners. I apologize for bringing it up so quickly before the meeting or right at the meeting. But if we have to discuss it in further cases, you know, happy to do so. But just wanted to give you my apology that did not bring it up in past meetings, and that it was brought up fairly quickly for this meeting. And I'm not going to repeat what I've said during our conversation. I think you heard pretty much at length my advice, recommendation to the commission on that. And I think overall, again, my purpose is to help the commission stay on point for what the ordinance requires the commission to do. And that's really the impetus for that suggestion.
I think no apology is needed. I think you are to be commended for bringing this up, for helping us understand it. And it helps us understand what our role is. And again, if there are things that we want to do that's not our role, there are other places to do it. So I'm tremendously appreciative for what you're doing. And I think no apology is necessary.
Well, thank you. If there are any questions or further discussion, I'm happy to try and answer questions, or I'm happy to listen to the commission further discuss the recommendation.
Tony, what might make sense is, what do you think about forwarding to the rest of the commission what you sent me and Quentin? And then I think we had a good discussion at the beginning of this meeting on the points you raised, and it especially came up with that one case, the Pine View Drive case. Perhaps if we could forward it to the rest of the commission so they can read and digest it, maybe move the discussion to begin the next meeting.
Happy to do so, and I'll definitely forward it to each of you. And again, I would just ask to be wary of not replying to all commission meeting members, so that we don't end up with the public. But let's, if you have questions of me or of Mr. Powell, please reply to us and we can answer those questions. And I will likely answer your question with the reply to all commissioners, so that every commissioner sees my reply. But then we'll further discuss it at the next meeting if that's Chairperson Isakoff's intent.
For the rest of the commission, how does that Mr. Baker sent a very detailed email. I think it lays out his positions clearly, and I want to give everyone a chance to read that before discussion. Any decision.
I would like to, do you mind,
Go ahead.
Quentin? I also want to just point out, since this is coming up on my second year, finishing my second year here, before COVID, we were a little more, we didn't give as much time, and we also did uphold the inspector in many cases where it was in the best interest of the person. I can think of one case in particular that had a large number of animals in the house, and there was a lot of problems, and it needed to happen very quickly, and it was the right thing to do. So I don't think we're opposed to what we did today, and following that process. One of the things that I more clear in your email is the fact that if a case goes to court, that it would be based on the original charges, because that was not my understanding before today. My understanding was things got updated, and that we were, as we continued them, they were updated based on the updates. And that concerns me a great deal. So.
And I think that is, again, part of the practice issue. And that was another issue that Troy and I realized, that the role of the commission is to consider that question at the time the case is presented to the commission. Should the inspector's original order be upheld or not the amendments down the road, because that's a different order. And in essence, you're starting the case over with the different due process taking effect. So another reason to not continue the case and uphold the ordinance is, you hear it originally, the original order is entered, then that entire case would go to Superior Court. If you continue the case and we were to hear it down the road, our advice is that we will present to you again the original case and the original order for that order to go to Superior Court, regardless of what work that's been done in between the first hearing date and the continuance date. Because again, the limited question to this commission is, should the inspector's order as presented as a new case be upheld or not?
I will say this. I don't know. I know that I've been on the commission a long time. Peter's been on the commission a long time. And as you can see today, all the cases we listen to aren't that cut and dry. So you need to be, I feel like, especially staff, if you interpret it that way, you might put us as a commissioners in a position to not approve your inspector's orders, because we do have that levity that will allow us to have further foresight. And to be quite honest with you, Tracy, you're exactly correct. 2 years ago, we actually had this issue before Mr. Blake came in, and
one of the things that we talked about was looking at properties and treating them as though they weren't being repaired. If we held them to the standard of how they were presented to us, 2 months later, just like what you dealt with today, where the young man had come in, they had bought this property, they didn't know that the property was even in this system, but they have shown considerable arrangements as well as advancements in their preparation. It was us on the commission that said, you need to amend how it is. We were seeing orders to demolish when stuff could have been repaired. And I do believe it was Carolyn who stated that we shouldn't be tearing houses down, we should be fixing them. I don't know if that's the exact verbiage. So we have to be, I understand what you're saying and telling us what our position is as a commission, but I don't want you to think that we're constrained by just those handcuffs, and that there is a human factor, which is why we're on the commission and why we look at people's things, because there's a human element. If it was all black and white, then there would be no need for a commission. But one of the reasons why we have a commission is so that we can see the human element and apply the gray area. So that being the case, I've been on the commission for many years. So has Carolyn, and so has Peter. And all my years on here, I've never seen an inspector be dismissed or not upheld. That being the case, I think that if I feel like if the city staff says, well, you're only here just to see what the inspector says, then we're gonna have to see, we saw on that man's case, there's a plumbing issue. But you didn't crawl underneath there and show us the plumbing issue. You just showed us a weak floor. So what that means is that you're gonna need to crawl up underneath there with a video camera and show us every single error, because I don't feel comfortable taking your word for it unless you have a trained plumber or heat and air guy on staff that can verify it with their license number as a professional. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't know how other commissioners feel, but I'm taking you at your word, and I don't know technically, Troy, if you're trained well enough to dictate it. Looking at it and understanding it are two different things. Because honestly, he told you Aurora Pro went in there themselves and they have a licensed plumber. There's nothing wrong with the plumbing, the aesthetics look bad, but it still conveys waste away from the property. So in the eyes of the state, it works. It just doesn't look good. So that's something that I think city staff needs to be real careful what they ask for, because if that's the case, we might not uphold the inspector because we recognize foresight down the road we could be attributing to homelessness. And that's not what we're here to do. As Peter stated earlier, that's against one of our initials.
And honestly, I agree with you. If staff has not presented to you sufficient evidence to uphold the violations presented to the commission, then it is your obligation to not uphold or issue the ordinance to uphold the inspector's decision. That's absolutely the burden upon the city, upon the staff, and upon me as guiding staff through that, is to make sure that you have sufficient information to uphold that order. That is our role, and that's the burden of proof, and that's the due process that the owner is entitled to.
So in the training of the inspectors, since you mentioned that, all the inspectors are certified with the Department of Insurance for Law and Administration, as well as the Housing Code Official certification that does teach them about all the four trades. And you also have, because of the International Property Maintenance Code, which is what the housing code is for the city of Greensboro, they are required to have the housing and maintenance property inspector certification, the zoning inspector certification, which is the certified code enforcement officer, which is the national certification. The inspectors themselves, when they test plumbing, they don't necessarily have to look under a house at the plumbing pipes themselves, because they're not making a determination that the pipe is actually broken. What they'll do is they'll test the system, especially if they're in a bathroom. They'll turn the sink faucet on, they'll turn the water in the shower on, and they'll flush the toilet, and they'll determine whether there's a pressure loss. They'll use if anything changes pressure, one decreases or one completely stops, that's the measuring standard that's in the IPMC code. Now, they're not plumbers and they're not DOI plumbing inspectors, and they don't have to be. If pressure is lost, the code specifically says, that it's not sufficient or it's not in good working order. Therefore, they'll cite that. And a lot of other stuff is just simply, you can tell if a cover's not on an outlet. if there's electric wires, sticking out of the wall, if the pop outs are on the panel boxes, holes in the floor, holes in the wall. A lot of this stuff is very easy to see. But one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to be strengthening the evidentiary packet. So you're actually going to see the order. I noticed that in these packets here, I questioned staff, why do you not see the order to repair? Because if you're upholding the order to repair, why is the order to repair not in this packet? So we're going to be we're going to be restructuring this packet, and I'm going to make sure that it is good and sound for a review by Superior Court. One of the things that's really brought a lot to our attention is a lot of the lawsuit cases that were, where the city is suing, for civil penalties. That I think the top 10 cases, we had some hearings with the Agapian cases and had won those lawsuits. And another one, in submitting the evidence to the court, it kind of opened the eyes. And I've not discussed this with Mr. Baker. He's aware on the legal side, but it's unique that our conversations are coming together almost from two different directions. That we're recognizing, hey, I think there's a problem with the packet, and he's recognizing potential problems that could happen on an appeal. So then when we start talking about it and looking at it, we're like, okay, we got to make some changes. So we're going to make an evidentiary packet change. And basically what's going to happen is that packet that it gets submitted to you, that's the packet that will stay with you. We won't be entering structures anymore additionally, unless we have reason to believe there are additional violations, because otherwise we believe that if an administrative search warrant is challenged, a district court judge might easily ask, why did you have to go in the house again? Why did you have to get a locksmith to open the door to go in the house again? Did you think the hole in the wall was going to get any bigger? Why do you have to go in there and do it again? And I think, it's already an invasion of privacy, but the general statute allows us that privilege for inspection purposes. And I don't want the inspector under oath to abuse that privilege. Therefore, we have to protect that privilege and make sure the public doesn't think that we're going in their home for any other reason other than simply to initially inspect a code violation. And when we realize prior to, if in an initial order to repair, when it comes to you, if we cite 20 violations, but they work down some and we still have to refer it to you for an ordinance, then what you're going to be getting is you're going to be getting all the corrected violations too at that time. But they were corrected outside of the appeal to Superior Court. Once it arrives
Hold
to
on one
you,
second there, Troy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to sign off, Peter and other commissioners. I have to take somebody to the airport, but I will. This is being recorded, so you can just email me the recording.
It's not, you can't email them.
Okay, well, that's okay. I will give my proxy vote to either Ms. Waddell or to Andrew Young, in case y'all figure it out. Y'all know how I think. And Tracy. I didn't forget about you, Tracy. So y'all go ahead and do that. I got to take somebody to the airport. I didn't realize what the time was. I apologize.
Before you run off, in the future, if there's something
I got to go to the airport.
If there's something presented you got questions about during the hearing, feel free to ask the inspector to make sure that they explain that evidence.
I got you, but my uncle's looking at me like you playing games. So
Understand.
go ahead on, and I will see y'all next week.
You take care.
You too.
And unless you got a question, I'll stop. I don't want to belabor the point. I do agree with Councilperson Hightower. We're going to add the subject here. And when I reach out to you for topics for your annual training that's scheduled in September, do let me know which areas that you want more information on so that we can make sure your time is spent wisely at your training.
Sounds good. And as to the underlying things that Mr. Baker raised, I think it would make sense if he can forward his email to the rest of the, let's bring it up at the beginning of next meeting. I think that would be a good forum to have that discussion.
I've forwarded it already.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
So you'll have it.
Chairman Isaacoff, I mean, I just want to add that I would look forward to seeing that, all that stuff in writing. It probably would have saved us a whole bunch of hassle if we had gotten something like that. So we wouldn't have to have this very long-winded conversation about this one particular case. I think also, I think either I used the word emotion or maybe you did, Peter, or then the other word like humane or something came in, and this had to regarding that particular case. But I think through that process of back and forth, we were able to better understand the process, which includes things like, and like maybe this is outside of our purview. I think it's for the good of all that if the city can intervene earlier, knowing that this thing is condemned and someone's going to need help, and Troy is saying, okay, maybe we can get in there earlier, great. Because I think that improves the process, improves the system. And if we didn't have that back and forth, maybe we wouldn't have gotten there, gotten to that point of making those kind of changes or looking to those kind of changes that are just going to help people. And whether we call that emotional or humane or whatever people want to call it, I think that's a good thing.
I agree. Well, thank you everyone for all your thoughts. I think we had some really good discussions today. I look forward to continuing those discussions. Are there any motions possibly to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seeing a motion in a second, the vote.
Chair Isaacov,
Yes.
Commissioner Bickerstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Waddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Young.
Yes. Thank
Thank y'all. Have a good rest of the week. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Great meeting.
Have a good evening.